In the quest for thriftiness, King Charles is changing the way royal housing is being used. But will King Charles's penny-pinching fracture family bonds? Or can Prince Andrew maintain his royal lodge?
Andrew Mountbatten Windsor has fallen so far, and we assumed, well, he can fall no further, but that is not the case.
There was a humiliation so intense, so unprecedented, that when it reportedly struck Prince Andrew inside Windsor Castle, even longtime staff didn't know how to react. Your Royal Highness, a title that followed him for 60 years, suddenly wasn't spoken anymore. What happened behind those palace walls that signaled the end of his privileges, and what message from King Charles began Andrew's quiet exile? Was this downfall inevitable, or did one final moment push everything over the edge? Today we break down the turning point that shocked insiders, reshaped royal dynamics, and changed Andrew's life forever. Stay with me, because what you're about to hear challenges everything you thought you knew about the modern monarchy. The Windsor Humiliation. The day the bowing stopped. Picture this. Prince Andrew walks through the ancient stone corridors of Windsor Castle, expecting the same treatment he's received his entire life. Staff straightening their uniforms, heads lowering in respect. The words, "Your Royal Highness," greeting him at every turn. But something's different. The air feels colder. Footsteps echo longer. And instead of bowing, staff members stand completely upright, their eyes steady, their expressions unreadable. Guards who once snapped to attention now stare straight ahead, refusing even the smallest acknowledgement. And then it happens. A palace employee addresses him not as Your Royal Highness, but as Mr. Mountbatten Windsor. Let that sink in. The tone is polite, professional, but there's no grandeur, no exception, no special treatment whatsoever. According to Daily Mail columnist Ephraim Hardcastle, this wasn't an accident. On Andrew's first visit since losing his titles, guards didn't salute him, and the customary bows he once demanded were completely withdrawn. The message: Andrew is not to receive special treatment of any kind. Not in words, not in gestures, not even in the tiny courtesies that once followed him everywhere. For a man raised in a world where hierarchy dictated every single interaction, this shift was absolutely devastating. The psychological warfare. But here's where it gets really interesting. Staff who had once stepped aside when Andrew approached now walked past him without hesitation. Those who used to soften their voices around him now spoke with the same tone they'd use for any visitor. And workers who once looked flustered if they mispronounced a title, they seemed almost relieved to drop it entirely. Witnesses described a brief moment, subtle but unmistakable, when Andrew's composure cracked. Just enough to reveal a flash of shock, anger, and something deeper. Something he'd been trying desperately to hide. Because this wasn't temporary. This wasn't a mistake. This was his new reality, carefully orchestrated by the king himself. But the humiliation had only just begun. When the royal kitchen went dark, if losing the bows rattled Andrew, what came next absolutely shattered him. For years, Andrew enjoyed what palace insiders called a royal delivery service. Whenever he was hungry, Windsor Castle's elite kitchens would prepare whatever he wanted and send it straight to Royal Lodge. Hot, fresh, perfectly packaged meals delivered without delay. It wasn't just convenient, it was a symbol of his status. But now, that door is slammed shut. According to Hardcastle's reporting, Andrew's privilege of having meals sent over from the castle, what he sarcastically called a royal deliveroo, has been withdrawn. Though there's a Pizza Express in Windsor Town Centre, a detail that carries its own bitter irony given Andrew's infamous BBC interview alibi. Staff received clear instructions. Nothing leaves the castle for Andrew. No breakfasts, no lunches, no handwritten notes from the kitchen. If he wants food, he has to figure it out himself, or rely on Sarah Ferguson to pull something together while juggling her own struggling business ventures. Think about that. A man who lived in a bubble where every detail of his life was anticipated by others now has to make his own meals. But here's the really juicy part that the palace doesn't want you to know. For decades, Andrew was known for his absolutely terrible treatment of staff, his sharp temper, his habit of barking orders without making eye contact, his refusal to say please or thank you. According to reports, Andrew's signature command, shouted frequently, was simply, "Hurry up!" He expected clothes pressed instantly, flights arranged with no notice, and every request handled as if the world revolved around his timetable. He didn't just want service, he demanded submission. And if someone forgot to bow, hesitated before responding, or used the wrong form of address, he didn't correct them quietly. He glared. He lectured. For years, staff endured this behavior because the hierarchy was clear. The rules were rigid, and challenging a royal, especially one as forceful as Andrew, felt impossible. So imagine what it feels like for those same employees today. After decades of shrinking themselves, they can now stand tall in his presence. After years of avoiding eye contact, they can look him straight in the face. And after being scolded for slipping up on titles, they can call him Mr. Mountbatten Windsor with quiet satisfaction. The new protocol didn't just strip Andrew of privilege, it gave the staff something they hadn't had in ages. Freedom, but the worst was yet to come. The war hero who fell the Falklands. Hero nobody remembers, but here's what makes Andrew's fall even more dramatic. This wasn't always who he was. There was a time when Prince Andrew was a genuine war hero, a man who risked his life for his country. In 1982, at just 22 years old, Andrew served as a Sea King helicopter pilot during the Falklands War aboard HMS Invincible. When Argentina invaded the Falkland Islands on April 2, 1982, the British government wanted to move Andrew to a desk job. They were terrified that the Queen's son could be killed in action. But Queen Elizabeth II refused. She insisted her son be allowed to remain with his ship. And Andrew didn't just sit safely in the background. He flew dangerous missions including anti-submarine warfare, casualty evacuation, and Exocet missile decoy operations. Let me explain how dangerous that was. The French-designed Exocet missile was a state-of-the-art weapon that flew at very low levels over the waves to evade radar. Argentine aircraft used Exocets to sink HMS Sheffield in the Atlantic conveyor. Andrew's job was to fly his helicopter near Royal Navy ships and deploy electronic decoys that mimicked imaginary targets, essentially making himself bait to lure incoming missiles away from the ships. In a 2001 interview, Andrew recalled, "For the first 10 minutes after the Sheffield, I think when one really didn't know which way to turn or what to do, I know where I was and I was very frightened then." Commander Nigel Ward described Andrew in his memoir as an excellent pilot and a very promising officer. A British Ministry of Defense spokesperson called him one hell of a helicopter pilot. When Andrew returned to the UK in September 1982, he came back a hero. Royal correspondent Katie Nichols said Andrew came back a hero and was very much the golden boy of the royal family. He was promoted to lieutenant in 1984, and Queen Elizabeth II appointed him as her personal aide-de-camp. Andrew continued serving in the Royal Navy until 2001, rising to the rank of commander, and even commanded the minehunter HMS Cottesmore from 1993 to 1994. He served his country for 22 years. He risked his life. He earned respect. So how did that man, a decorated naval officer, a war hero, become this? The answer lies in what happened after he left the Navy, and that's where Jeffrey Epstein enters the story. The emails that destroyed everything. The emails that shattered his last defense. Just when it seemed Andrew's humiliation had reached its peak, something happened that changed everything. Fresh emails surfaced in November 2025. Private communications between Andrew and members of Jeffrey Epstein's inner circle, released by the U.S. House Oversight and Government Reform Committee. And their contents tore through the last scraps of the narrative he'd tried desperately to preserve. In March 2011, when the Mail on Sunday contacted Epstein's circle about allegations, Andrew sent frantic messages to both Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. One line stood out above everything else. 5 words that destroyed every public claim he ever made. "I can't take any more of this." For a man who spent decades projecting control, that single sentence revealed the truth he fought to hide. Andrew wasn't offering explanations, he was pleading. "Please make sure that every statement or legal letter states clearly that I am not involved and that I knew and know nothing about any of these allegations," he wrote to Epstein. To Maxwell, "I don't know anything about this. You must say so, please. This has nothing to do with me." But here's the most damaging detail. These emails proved Andrew was still in touch with Epstein's circle long after he publicly insisted he'd cut ties. In his 2019 BBC Newsnight interview with Emily Maitlis, Andrew claimed he had no contact with Epstein after their December 2010 meeting. "To this day, I never had any contact with him from that day forward," he told the world. But on February 28, 2011, just 2 months after he supposedly cut all ties, Andrew sent Epstein an email saying, "We are in this together and we'll have to rise above it." He signed off with, "Keep in close touch and we'll play some more soon." His entire public defense collapsed instantly. The BBC interview that became a disaster. Remember when Andrew told Emily Maitlis he couldn't have been with Virginia Giuffre because he was at Pizza Express in Woking with his daughter Beatrice? That bizarre alibi, which the BBC nearly cut because they thought it would make him look ridiculous. Andrew actually insisted they include it, stopping the interview to record it again because he was convinced it would clear him. His claim that he couldn't sweat due to the Falklands War, that he didn't know where the bar at Tramp nightclub was, that the famous photograph might be fake, all of it now feels like a carefully crafted performance designed to hide a truth that was already slipping away. In July 2011 emails, Epstein himself appeared to confirm the authenticity of that infamous photograph, the one Andrew claimed might be fake. "Yes, she was on my plane, and yes, she had her picture taken with Andrew, as many of my employees have," Epstein wrote. The secret dossier. And there's more. According to royal biographer Andrew Loney's book entitled BBC Panorama journalists discovered personal email discussions between Ghislaine and Andrew discussing Virginia. The revelation? The emails between Ghislaine and Andrew didn't exclaim, "It's a fake, I've never met her." Instead, they worked together to build a dossier about Virginia to leak to the media. While publicly claiming innocence, Andrew and Maxwell were privately strategizing, building a case against his accuser to discredit her in the press. This wasn't a man blindsided by false allegations. This was a man who knew what was coming and scrambled to contain it, and the palace could no longer protect him. The price of silence. The 12 million secret and the settlement that changed everything. But before we get to his exile, we need to talk about the moment that truly defined Andrew's fall, February 15, 2022. That's when Andrew reached a settlement with Virginia Giuffre, ending her civil sexual abuse lawsuit against him. The amount, officially undisclosed, but multiple reports estimated it at around $12 million, roughly $16 million. According to Giuffre's posthumous memoir, Nobody's Girl, published in October 2025, she believed the late Queen Elizabeth II had footed the bill. It was reported that his mother, the Queen of England, had footed the bill, she wrote. In her book, Giuffre revealed she looked forward to using the Crown's money to do some good through her charity foundation, Speak Out, Act, Reclaim, SOAR. The settlement came just weeks before Andrew was scheduled to give a deposition on March 10, 2022, a proceeding that terrified him. Giuffre's lawyers were planning to call his ex-wife, Sarah Ferguson, and his daughters, Beatrice and Eugenie, as witnesses. If we depose the princesses, his family members could potentially poke holes in his alibi, Giuffre wrote in her memoir. Think about that. Andrew was so desperate to avoid testifying under oath that he paid millions, money he didn't even have, to make the case disappear. The settlement included no admission of wrongdoing, but in the court of public opinion, everyone knew what it meant. As one legal expert put it, who would pay $12 million if they didn't do it? But that wasn't even the end of Andrew's scandals. The Chinese spy scandal that shocked the palace. Just when you thought Andrew couldn't possibly embarrass the royal family any further, December 2024 brought yet another bombshell. A Chinese businessman named Yang Tengbo, also known as H6 in court documents, was revealed to have developed what judges called an unusual degree of trust with Prince Andrew. Yang was banned from the UK on national security grounds after British intelligence determined he was working for the United Front Work Department, an arm of the Chinese Communist Party used to influence foreign entities. Here's where it gets absolutely wild. According to court documents released in December 2024, Yang was invited to Andrew's 60th birthday party in 2020. He had access to Buckingham Palace, St. James's Palace, and Windsor Castle. Yang was even authorized to act on Andrew's behalf during business meetings with potential Chinese investors. A letter from Andrew's close advisor to Yang, revealed in court, stated, "You should never underestimate the strength of that relationship. Outside of his closest internal confidants, you sit at the very top of a tree that many people would like to be on." The letter continued with a chilling detail. "Under your guidance, we found a way to get the relevant people unnoticed in and out of the house in Windsor." Read that again. Unnoticed in and out of a royal residence. Yang was co-founder of Pitch Palace China, expanding Andrew's entrepreneurial initiative into China. According to released documents, Yang even helped Andrew draft letters to Chinese President Xi Jinping about something called the Eurasia Fund.
Well, Xi Jinping certainly has vast international ambitions, right? That's something we've seen throughout his entire tenure.
Andrew's former aide, Dominic Hampshire, revealed in witness statements that the royal household, including the late Queen, were fully aware of this communication. It was certainly accepted, and it may be fair to say it was even encouraged. When the scandal broke in December 2024, Andrew released a statement saying he had ceased all contact with Yang and that nothing of a sensitive nature was ever discussed. But the damage was done. MI5 was reportedly investigating Chinese money given to Andrew. King Charles was briefed and described as truly exasperated by the situation. Conservative MP Ian Duncan Smith told the BBC there are many more Chinese spies operating in the UK and called for Andrew to be fully investigated. This revelation came at the worst possible time, just as Prime Minister Keir Starmer was trying to thaw relations with China. So now Andrew isn't just a liability because of Epstein. He's a legitimate national security concern. The exile. The exile that sealed his fate. Inside the palace, a new fear began to settle. If these emails exist, what else is out there? The timing of revelations was devastating. October 2025 brought Virginia Giuffre's posthumous memoir, Nobody's Girl, then the email revelations. By November, the House Oversight Committee had released thousands more pages of documents. The pressure became unbearable. On October 30th, 2025, Buckingham Palace made an unprecedented announcement. King Charles had initiated a formal process to strip Andrew of all his royal titles, honors, and styles, including the title Prince and the style His Royal Highness. For the first time in modern royal history, a prince born into the family would be stripped of his very title of prince itself. He would no longer be Prince Andrew, Duke of York. He would simply be Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. King Charles has made it brutally clear there is no road back for Andrew. The Royal Lodge, Andrew's last stand. Andrew has been living in Royal Lodge since 2004, a sprawling 30-room mansion worth approximately $37 million. Here's the kicker. Andrew signed a 75-year lease in 2003 that requires him to pay just one peppercorn per year in rent, literally a single peppercorn if demanded. King Charles tried desperately to evict Andrew for over 2 years, but Andrew refused to budge. Charles wanted the property as a dowager house for Queen Camilla, but in November 2024, Andrew scored what insiders called a quiet victory. Charles essentially gave up trying to evict him. But Charles didn't surrender completely. He cut Andrew's annual allowance of $1 million and withdrew his private security detail. Royal biographer Andrew Loney revealed that Andrew has plenty of money from contacts in the Middle East. Sarah Ferguson, who lives with him at the lodge, has co-authored best-selling romance novels. The couple also bought a $6 million property in London's Mayfair, generating rental income. So Andrew has found the money to maintain Royal Lodge, though questions swirl about where exactly that money comes from. Internal exile to Sandringham, Andrew is now expected to relocate to an isolated cottage on the Sandringham estate, 100 miles north of London, far from Windsor, far from the pulse of royal life. Insiders call it what the monarchy won't say out loud: internal exile. According to Daily Mail reports, Andrew has been insisting on an appropriate home and a rota of staff fit for the son, however debased, of a queen. He's demanding a cook, a housekeeper, a secretary cum butler, and gardeners. But there's a catch. Andrew is now banned from riding in the grounds of Windsor Castle, allegedly to keep him out of view of the general public. Royal biographer Robert Hardman revealed that Andrew will likely now have to bow to his own daughters, Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie, in public settings due to royal protocol. They now outrank their father. Can you imagine? A man who once demanded bows from everyone around him, now required to bow to his own children. The move is expected after Christmas 2025. According to BBC reports, a royal source said Andrew won't even be invited to Christmas celebrations at Sandringham. King Charles has drawn that line firmly. The international pressure isn't letting up. Democratic members of the U.S. House Oversight Committee have been calling for Andrew to testify before Congress about his Epstein connections. Representative Suhas Subramaniam told the BBC that if Andrew wants to do right by the victims, he will come forward. So far, Andrew has provided zero cooperation, according to U.S. authorities. This is where his story now stands. A former prince stripped of titles, roles, and privileges. A man who once demanded bows and instant obedience, now facing staff who stand tall and feel no obligation to indulge the arrogance he carried for decades. A public reputation that hasn't just collapsed, it's collapsed again with each new revelation. If these emails are just the tip of the iceberg, then what else could still be lurking behind the palace walls, waiting to surface? Every new revelation raises bigger, more shocking questions, and for Andrew, the next one could completely upend everything we thought we knew. I want to hear from you. How deep do you think this story goes, and what do you think could be exposed next? Drop your theories in the comments. I read
the cracks that threaten centuries of carefully maintained tradition. That stare may have silenced the cathedral for a moment, but William's counter-move has set royal narratives on fire, forcing everyone to look toward a future where compassion yields to clear boundaries. A funeral that became a flashpoint. The atmosphere inside Westminster Cathedral carried unusual weight that September morning, heavy with beeswax and centuries of accumulated history. Catherine, Duchess of Kent, had lived as more than a minor royal figure. Her 1994 conversion to Catholicism, a deeply personal choice, made this funeral service unprecedented in modern Windsor history. King Charles III walked at the procession's head, his attendance a meaningful gesture toward the interfaith understanding his reign has tried to build. The choir's performance of classical compositions seemed to reach toward heaven itself, prayers set to music. Yet the reconciliation those hymns suggested felt impossibly distant when Prince Andrew arrived. He came accompanied by his former wife, Sarah Ferguson, their joint appearance turning heads among the crowds gathered outside. For the Duke, whose public presence since his 2022 removal from military honors and royal patronages has been limited to only the most intimate family occasions like his parents' funerals, this appearance carried significance. Some insiders suggested his attendance at this memorial for a distant family connection by marriage was no coincidence. It represented a calculated attempt to reclaim some appearance of normalcy, to stand among family as though the Epstein associations and serious allegations were simply unfortunate footnotes in an otherwise acceptable story. But normalcy remained stubbornly out of reach. As royals filed into position, Andrew and Ferguson, both 65 and remarkably inseparable despite their long-ago divorce, drew audible reactions from observers who had grown accustomed to his near-total withdrawal to Royal Lodge. Queen Camilla's last-minute absence due to illness only heightened the existing tension, creating a vacuum that Andrew's presence seemed determined to occupy. Photographs captured the scene with brutal honesty. Andrew dressed in formal black, moving past security barriers with police escort, his face arranged in practiced solemnity. Yet beneath that mask, those who know palace dynamics detected something else. Defiance, a refusal to simply disappear. This marked Andrew's first significant appearance alongside working royals since his spectacular fall, and it carried undercurrents of challenge. For William and Catherine, positioned prominently with their children, this service was meant to celebrate a life of understated service. The Duchess had represented the monarchy's gentler aspects, her support of arts and quiet charitable work, offering counterbalance to the family's more dramatic moments. But Andrew's proximity transformed reverence into tension. As the Requiem Mass progressed with a Scottish piper echoing laments that had marked Queen Elizabeth II's own farewell, attention kept drifting from the altar to the pews. Andrew, positioned directly behind the Wales family in the post-service procession, loomed like an unwelcome ghost. Whispered conversations spread among attendees, from fellow aristocrats to international religious dignitaries, all noting the awkward optics. Was Andrew extending an olive branch, or was this a calculated reminder of his bloodline connections that nobody could erase? Palace sources later indicated that invitations had gone out with expectations of quiet, dignified attendance. Yet Andrew's decision to arrive with Ferguson, who has never been shy about drawing attention, added a layer of spectacle that clashed sharply with the day's somber purpose. Within the cathedral's vaulted silence, where even the softest sound seemed amplified, this gathering of fractured family branches exposed the monarchy's ongoing internal struggle. How to honor tradition's demands while answering modern calls for accountability. For a family whose strength has always rested on projecting unity, Andrew's return felt less like a homecoming and more like lighting a match near gasoline. William's protective instinct ignites. Prince William's face betrayed his feelings before any words needed speaking. As that hostile stare unfolded mere feet away, the Prince of Wales, forever the guardian, shifted almost imperceptibly, his frame positioning itself as a barrier between his wife and the source of threat. Eyewitnesses described his expression transforming like weather systems gathering, jaw muscles tightening beneath the formal mourning attire, eyes flashing with a protectiveness refined through years of defending those he loves from various forms of attack. This was no detached family member trying to ignore awkwardness. This was a husband, a father, and a future king whose tolerance for family dysfunction had reached its absolute limit. The moment, preserved in what has become an iconic photograph, showing Andrew positioned just behind the couple, captured William's subtle repositioning, his hand briefly touching Catherine's elbow in a gesture of quiet solidarity. It represented the kind of instinctual protection that has characterized him since childhood. From shielding his mother from aggressive photographers to now defending against barbs from his own extended family. Palace sources, leaking information to media outlets within a single day, painted a picture of barely contained fury. One aide close to the Wales household confided that William was absolutely livid, not just about the disrespect shown Catherine, but about the sheer audacity of turning a funeral into a personal battlefield. The service had already tested his patience. Andrew's unexpected dramatic arrival with Ferguson in tow, drawing gasps from crowds on the pavement, had established a discordant tone from the start. But the stair crossed into territory William considered sacred. William, who has shouldered the monarchy's burdens with pragmatism that sometimes borders on ruthlessness, recognized this as a final breaking point in a long series of provocations. His history with Andrew reads like a chronicle of increasing frost. The 2019 Christmas exclusion following the emergence of damaging photographs. The 2022 removal of titles that William reportedly advocated for behind closed doors. Yet, until this moment, protocol had demanded maintaining at least a surface level of civility, especially at occasions like funerals where attendants acknowledged blood connections over personal failings. That calculation had just changed permanently. As the family emerged onto the cathedral's exterior steps, William's body language communicated volumes without requiring speech. He angled his position to physically block Andrew from camera views, engaged King Charles in low, intense conversation, while Catherine composed herself with waves to well-wishers. Viral video clips, subsequently analyzed by body language specialists on morning television programs, highlighted the micro-expressions, a furrowed brow, an unusually tight grip on his order of service, the deliberate forward step that isolated his uncle from the family group. For William, this anger operated on multiple levels. It stemmed from protective instincts toward Catherine, whose grace under relentless pressure has made her the family's emotional foundation. It echoed his own deep scars, particularly the loss of Diana, amplifying his rejection of unchecked entitlement and poor judgment. And it reflected strategic calculation. Andrew's continued antics risked staining the Wales family's carefully crafted image of modern relevance and earned respect. In the car's private interior during the drive to a closed reception afterward, sources indicate William's first call went to a trusted senior advisor, immediately laying groundwork for what would become his most dramatic exercise of heir's authority yet. The heir's reaction was not impulsive, emotional outburst. It was the ignition point for a man prepared to wield his future power as a weapon, ensuring that one poorly judged glance would reverberate through palace halls for months to come. In that surge of protective anger, William didn't simply react. He recalibrated the entire family dynamic. The Yorks' isolation deepens. Prince Andrew's royal lodge, that sprawling Windsor estate of faded elegance, must now feel more like confinement than residence. William's ultimatum landed with the force of closing doors that had been barely opened, transforming Andrew's already limited access into complete social exile. No longer an occasional presence at family celebrations, Andrew faces isolation that cuts deeper than any stripped title. Christmas at Sandringham, with its generations of tradition and festive warmth, becomes a gathering he can only imagine from a distance. A calculated void that stings more sharply than public criticism. Ferguson, who has survived multiple scandals throughout her unconventional life, finds her own world constricting. Her charitable appearances and media ventures now operate under the shadow of the Wales family's frost. The pair, who have maintained their unusual closeness despite decades since their divorce, now confront a unified wall from the heir apparent, one that whispers of irrelevance and obsolescence. Financially, pressure applies in more subtle but equally effective ways. Conversations circulate about potential tenancy reviews for Royal Lodge, that 30-room property funded through sovereign resources, with suggestions floated about relocating to more modest accommodations like Frogmore Cottage, previously occupied briefly by Harry and Meghan during their short-lived return to UK duties. Andrew's already reduced income streams see no relief, while Ferguson's charitable patronages face quiet scrutiny, ensuring no association with past controversies resurfaces through donor connections. The stair's legacy manifests as personal devastation disguised as policy adjustment. Andrew, now 65 and increasingly bitter, has reportedly complained privately about William's vendetta, viewing the exclusion as retribution for perceived loyalty to the late Queen and refusal to simply disappear. Yet his defiance, the same attitude that produced that hostile cathedral stare, now accelerates his isolation. Ferguson, managing her own health battles, provides emotional support, but even she reportedly senses the fundamental shift, confiding to friends about a family consuming itself. Publicly, the Yorks project defiance through strategic appearances at lesser events, and Ferguson's hints about forthcoming memoirs containing unvarnished perspectives. But the exile's impact is undeniable. No longer the familiar presence at significant royal occasions, Andrew becomes a historical footnote, his Windsor existence increasingly solitary. For his daughters, Beatrice and Eugenie, the situation creates painful divisions. Torn between parental loyalty and their own careful positions within the broader royal framework, their relatively low-profile lives become collateral damage in this larger conflict. Beatrice's careful diplomatic endeavors face new scrutiny, while Eugenie's international connections strain under the weight of family baggage. The ultimatum's effectiveness lies in its precision. It punishes without creating spectacle, eroding influence through systematic absence. Andrew's responses, leaked through sympathetic sources about ungrateful younger generations, ring hollow against William's mandate. In this fallout, the York sphere contracts, becoming a microcosm of the monarchy's broader evolution, where continuation demands not just royal blood, but demonstrated loyalty and judgment. The stare may have been impulsive, but its cost is measured in a dynasty's quiet dismantling, one excluded seat at family gatherings at a time. Charles caught between son and brother. King Charles III, the longtime advocate for a streamlined monarchy, now navigates its sharpest internal contradiction. Balancing brotherly affection against his son's forceful will, all while a nation watches for signs of decisive leadership. William's ultimatum placed him in an emotional vice, his brother's quiet desperation clashing with his son's steely determination. At 76, managing his own serious health challenges that have visibly aged him, Charles had envisioned a reign characterized by unity, cutting excess while preserving the institution's heart. Andrew, his sibling who once enjoyed protection through multiple scandals, represents that excess in its most problematic form. Yet blood connections linger, built from shared childhood experiences to their mother's final attempts at maintaining family cohesion. The funeral had represented Charles's attempt at extending grace, a quiet allowance for Andrew's presence at this historic Catholic service, honoring religious significance without drawing attention. But the stare demolished that fragile accommodation, forcing Charles to confront an impossible choice. Indulge Andrew and risk alienating William, the monarchy's vital future, or rebuke his brother and betray bonds formed in palace nurseries decades ago. Sources describe the post-funeral discussions as a sovereign's crucible. Charles pacing through Clarence House's formal rooms, advisors hovering uncertainly in corners. William's words, delivered with the authority of the heir apparent, carried tones of inevitability. Exile Andrew to preserve the crown's remaining credibility, or watch public trust continue eroding under renewed York-related damage. Charles, despite his reputation as a conciliator, acquiesced not from weakness, but recognition of reality. He understood his son's command of public sentiment and contemporary values. Polling data reinforces this. Substantial majorities view William as the family's future strength, while Andrew's favorability remains devastatingly low. The king's compliance manifests through strategic silence. No palace denials of the Christmas exclusion. No prominent mentions of York family members in official communications. Yet it clearly causes him pain. Charles's vision, articulated repeatedly since his accession, sought a relevant monarchy that balanced efficiency with compassion, where even wayward family members might find redemption through quiet contrition and private service. William's approach cuts far more cleanly, prioritizing public perception over olive branches, representing a generational shift from Charles's diplomatic inclinations to the Wales family's pragmatic ruthlessness. The constraint extends to practical policy. Charles resists formal eviction proceedings, citing constitutional sensitivities and family loyalty, but yields ground on event attendance, hoping Andrew's discretion might suffice going forward. Ferguson's sidelining adds particular irony, her warmth once making her a favorite among the younger generation, now classified as liability in William's calculations. For the sovereign, this represents less betrayal than reluctant passing of the baton. A recognition that the heir mirrors his own determination but tempers it with youth's impatience and intolerance for perceived weakness. Whispered conversations suggest paternal pride mixing with melancholy, Charles quietly confiding to Camilla about witnessing his son surpass him in certain aspects of leadership. In this tension, the stare's real victim emerges. The illusion of family unity, cracked by a hostile glance, awkwardly mended through William's mandate. Charles's navigation, graceful yet grudging, underscores the throne's ongoing evolution, where brotherly bonds must bend before the inexorable demands of succession planning. A monarchy transformed through confrontation. As the immediate drama settles into palace routine, Prince William's decisive action against Andrew illuminates a path forward where the monarchy systematically sheds its problematic elements, like a tree losing dead branches, emerging more focused, more protective of its core, and far more willing to establish firm boundaries. This transcends isolated family conflict, representing a preview of the Wales era, one where personal affronts to Catherine become institutional red lines and family loyalty is measured through actions rather than bloodline proximity. The implications spread in widening circles, strengthening the center while sending clear warnings to anyone at the periphery. Align with the mission or face irrelevance. For working royals, William's model promises relief, concentrating limited resources on the effective core while systematically quarantining sources of scandal. Charitable organizations once associated with Andrew pivot toward fresher representatives like Beatrice's measured engagements, but under far stricter oversight than previous generations accepted. Public sentiment, measured through post-funeral surveys and ongoing polling, largely endorses this tough love approach, with substantial majorities supporting firm action to protect the institution's relevance and credibility. Yet shadows persist alongside the applause. Andrew's marginalization risks creating martyr narratives that fuel anti-monarchist arguments about elitist infighting and outdated privilege. Across Europe, royal families in Sweden and Denmark observe warily, their own streamlining efforts having proceeded with less dramatic public conflict, pondering whether Britain's bold strokes might invite backlash that damages rather than strengthens. For Catherine, the clear beneficiary of William's protective stance, this cements her position as untouchable within the family hierarchy. Her recovery narrative now intertwined with empowerment, inspiring countless people globally to demand healthy boundaries even within gilded environments. William's assertiveness, once criticized by some as emotional distance or aloofness, now appears as effective stewardship, his refusal to tolerate dysfunction resonating as exactly what a fatigued public seeks. Speculation naturally swirls about future applications. Will this approach extend to other family tensions, potentially hardening positions in the ongoing Atlantic divide with Harry, or establishing precedents for handling any family member whose behavior threatens the institution? As Christmas approaches and Sandringham prepares its annual gathering, the York family's absence will send unmistakable messages. The crown endures not through indulgent forgiveness of repeated failures, but through ironclad commitment to standards and consequences. William has not simply avenged a disrespectful stare. He has fundamentally redrawn the family's operational map, charting a course where duty and discipline trump dynasty's declining elements. The monarchy, tested repeatedly in recent years, now positions itself for genuine reinvention, its future trajectory painted in strokes of resolve and clear boundaries. What's your perspective, reader? Does William's bold gambit represent salvation for an institution struggling with relevance, or does it strain the very fabric that has held the monarchy together through centuries of challenge? Share your verdict in the comments below and join the ongoing conversation about a royal house being actively reforged.